will recall that at our British-Irish Parliamentary Assembly meeting in your own county, that a call was made, particularly by British parliamentarians, for better engagement by their own government with the Irish government, be it at British-Irish Council level, at British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference level. And we would hope that in the future the British Prime Minister and senior ministers would be regular attendees and participants at those crucial bilateral meetings where over the years successive Taoiseach and successive Taoiseach and Ministers for Foreign Affairs have always participated. Taoiseach, no doubt you'll be meeting the British Prime Minister shortly after the 4th of July, whoever holds that office. Could I appeal to you, Taoiseach, in your first engagement with the Prime Minister, that you would refer again to the legacy issue? As we know, the British Tory government put this deplorable Legacy Act through Parliament. It's perpetrator-centred instead of victim-centred. I'm thinking as well of the lack of cooperation by successive British governments in regard to giving access to files and papers pertaining to the Dublin Monaghan bombings. I'm also thinking of lack of adequate response by the authorities in Northern Ireland in relation to investigations into the Belturbet bombing of 1972, where 2 young teenagers were killed. Taoiseach, you would have heard me and your predecessors speak very, very often on these very, very important issues in this House. I would appeal to you, Taoiseach, to ensure that in your first engagement with the British Prime Minister, that the Legacy Act is discussed. The British Labour Party, thankfully, they have committed to repealing the Act. The fight for truth and justice must continue. But one way of continuing that is for the British government to repeal that deplorable piece of legislation where they've dismissed the victims and their families, and where they are ensuring that perpetrators of the most vile crimes, perpetrators from the British state forces, perpetrators from paramilitary organisations, that they will literally be able to give themselves immunity from the most serious of crimes. Thank you, Oireachtas.
Deputy Smith, thank you for raising BIPA. Again, I very much enjoyed the British-Irish Parliamentary Association being in County Wicklow. We were delighted to host it, and I thank you for your leadership of it, along with Karen Bradley. And of course, when I'm not interfering in the British election at all, regardless of the outcome of the British election, I look forward to meeting the British Prime Minister in July. I'll be attending the European Political Community meeting there anyway, and hope to have an opportunity to meet whoever the British Prime Minister is. And I would also hope to have an early bilateral meeting with the British Prime Minister post the general election. Of course, in any engagements that I have, I will be making the points that Deputy Smith has made in terms of our eagerness to continue at a senior level close political engagement with our nearest neighbours, and how important that is for the future prosperity and well-being of both our islands and our peoples. The view of the Irish government is very well known in relation to the Legacy Act. We took pulled all the normal levers, went through all the normal processes, and unfortunately, with a heavy heart, we found ourselves having to lodge an interstate case against the United Kingdom with the European Court of Human Rights on the 17th of January. The deadline for intervention as a third party in this case expired on the 2nd of May. A relatively large number of intended third parties have sought leave to intervene in the case, and the Court's decision is now awaited in that regard. The Court will consult with the parties in due course with the view to fixing the procedures, and the Court will consider the admissibility of the Government's application in the first instance. But our view on the Legacy Act is clear, is consistent, and is in line with the views of all parties in Northern Ireland who also oppose this Act as well, for many of the reasons that Deputy Smith outlined.